بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اهتدى بهديه واستنى بسنته إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to this 59th episode of the Islamic fiqh. And today we're going to talk about what is known in the fiqh as al-jinayat, and this can be translated as in the book as offences or as felonies, and this is closer to what is being practiced nowadays. So a felony or an offense is any type of a crime committed against a person, whether physically or on his property or by tarnishing his reputation. This is called an offense. This is a felony. And the Muslim scholars usually, when they refer to jinayah, they refer to the physical abuse. As for other types of offenses, usually they may include it under the prescribed mandatory punishment known as al-hudud. So if I slander a person, this is a felony. But such a felony is usually found under the headline of hudud, the prescribed punishment, while a jinayah, and this is a singular of jinayat, jinayah, a felony or an offense, is usually a crime affecting a person's physical status and requires punishment. And this punishment varies. It might be in the form of equal retribution or a financial fine or others. And an offense may be a crime leading to death or lesser harm. So if you kill someone, this is an offense. The retribution, the punishment, as we will see, can be as severe as death as well. Now, the first thing the scholars talked about in such topics is the greatest and the most severe, and then that is killing. And killing can be murder and can be accidental, but it is an offense either way because someone was affected by it. And there are differences. So an offense of killing is divided into three types, three categories. One is deliberate killing, premeditated, intentional murder. The second one is semi-deliberate, and the third one is the accidental. And each of these three has its own rulings, and it differs from one another. The end result is one. We have a corpse, we have a deceased person. So what are the differences and the consequences of such an action? Firstly, deliberate killing, or better known as murder. And this felony, in it, the killer intends unlawfully to kill another person using means that would most probably kill. What kind of means are we talking about? Well, scholars of fiqh, and especially I'm talking about al-fiqh al-Hanbali, and all books of fiqh, when it comes to offenses and felonies, you will find details that are so magnificent and sometimes confusing. And unfortunately, no matter how many times you study this chapter and you teach it, you're bound to forget it because it's not your day-to-day job. So people ask us about prayer. It's easy to respond. Asks us about rulings on zakat, on hajj, on fasting. But when it comes to issues pertaining to courts and legislative issues, such as what happens if a person stabs another, what are the consequences, what are the punishment, etc., this is something that only professional judges who deal with this on day-to-day basis can be able to answer, or it requires us to go and research. So in the fiqh of al-fiqh al-Hanbali, they give 9 ways of deliberate killing. And they say that, for example, to stab someone with something that penetrates the body. So this is deliberate because a knife usually kills. And when there's a dispute and you stab someone and he dies, this is called murder. It's not acceptable for you to say, oh, I just wanted to wound him. No, this is a fight and you stabbed him. Secondly, if you throw or hit the victim with a big rock, so a pebble doesn't kill. But if you hit someone with a very heavy rock in the head and he dies, this is murder. Thirdly, they say if you throw a person in the den of a lion and the lion eats it or eats him, this is definitely a deliberate murder. Fourthly, to throw that person in fire, the victim in fire, or in water when he cannot swim, and you know that. So throwing someone in raging fire and you know he cannot escape that, or in water, this is murder. Fifthly, to strangle someone, to prevent him from breathing, whether by a rope or to put some material, adhesive, for example, to prevent him from breathing or the likes. Sixthly, to lock him down until he starves to death without feeding him or providing him with water. The Prophet told us that a woman entered or was admitted to hellfire because she locked down a kitten. Neither she fed it and gave it water, nor she let it go away and look and search for insects to feed upon. Seventhly, to kill a victim with black magic. And we know that black magic either is used by using jinn or by using potions and medications that alter a person's medical and mental state of mind. So if this impacts the victim in his body until it kills him, this is deliberate murder. Eighthly, to poison someone. So feeding someone something that would poison him, whether in his drink or in his food, while he does not know, then this is murder. And ninthly, to testify against someone, which would lead to killing him. So for example, if we know that a person is married and we know that the punishment for adultery is execution. So 4 men come forward and they lie and they say, yes, we saw this individual committing adultery, and they give a description of what they had seen, and the judge rules that he has to be stoned to death. And he's executed, he's killed. Later on they come and say that, oops, listen, we made a mistake, sorry, we plotted against him and he didn't commit adultery. In this case, this is considered to be murder. So there are conditions, as stated in your book, for this to be considered as murder. One, that the killer intends to kill his victim. So whether he does this intentionally or he has the intention to harm the victim. Secondly, knowledge that the person he intends to kill is a human being who enjoys the right of life. What does that mean? If I'm target practicing and I shoot my target not knowing that behind it there was a man standing, I didn't intend to take the life of a human being or harm that human being. So this is not intentional. 3, the means used is something that normally leads to killing. So if I use a blade, if I use a big rock, if I use a bullet, if I use an arrow, if I use a spear, all of these things kill usually. But if I hit someone with a small pebble, or if I had a fan and I hit someone and he dies with it, this is not considered to be murder, because this is not means of killing someone. If I run someone over with a car, this is murder. But if someone was standing next to the car and I opened the door and I hit him with the door, this is not murder, because this doesn't kill usually. So it is up to the judge's evaluation to consider whether this is intentional murder or not. So the murder has 2 rulings. The first one relates to the hereafter and the other one relates to this world. As for the hereafter, the murderer is threatened by Allah Azza wa Jal that severe torment awaits him. Allah Azza wa Jal says, he who deliberately kills a believer, his punishment is hell, therein to abide permanently. God will be angry with him and will reject him and will prepare for him a dreadful suffering. So this is what awaits a murderer. As in this life, the punishment of a murderer is death by qisas. And there is a difference between qisas and prescribed punishments. Qisas is something that one does in order to, how do you say, get even. And the origin of qisas is from al-qasas. When you track a person's tracks, this is qasas. When we know that a person went here and we track his footsteps and where he was going to, this is called qasas. And qisas is derived from that, and it actually in legislative definition means to do to the assailant exactly what he had done to the victim. So if he had killed, we kill him. If he amputated one of his limbs, we amputate one of his limbs, and so on. And this is the definition of qisas. Now, qisas is the right of the heirs of a deceased, of a victim, which means that they are given the choice of three choices. So a murderer kills our brother. Now he's caught, he's tried, convicted. What is to be done? The judge gives us one of three options. Number one, to enforce the death penalty, a life for a life. And usually in Islamic law, the assailant, the murderer, is given to the heirs to do the execution if they are knowledgeable. So if one of the heirs says, I know how to execute, the sword is given to him, and the murderer is brought in front of everybody, and he chops his head off. A soul for a soul, an eye for an eye. If no one knows how to do this, then yes, it has to be given to the appointed person and the professional executioner, because this is his job, and this is merciful, more merciful, so that the murderer would not suffer. Now, if we, or one, see, the heirs are those who inherit. So if someone killed a man, and the man had a wife, a father, a mother, and sons and daughters, they all have to give the verdict of demanding execution. So even if the children are young, the man is thrown into prison until they reach puberty and can give the verdict whether to kill or to pardon. But if one member of the heirs says, I forgive, in this case, execution is stopped. Even if the other 9 members of his family demand execution, one only comes and says, I forgive, forgiveness prevails. So it's execution. If they don't want execution, or one of them doesn't want execution, then the murderer is obliged to give what is known as blood money or indemnity, or whatever they may call it. And if they don't want blood money, and they say that nothing would bring our loved one back to life, they may pardon. So they don't demand execution, they don't demand any financial means of compensation, and they simply pardon the killer, and the killer is out of jail on his way. And there are details about the blood money or this indemnity. In Arabic we call it diya, and the diya has specifications, whether it should be 100 camels, the ages of the camels, whether they're pregnant or not, so that the value differs, and you will find that in detail. I personally believe that to us it is not of great importance, because it is not us who is going to determine the diya, let alone the ages, and let alone whether it's pregnant or not. What is best if one was put in such a situation? Meaning, my brother was in a fight and he was stabbed and killed. Should I pardon, or should I demand execution, or should I take the indemnity or the blood money? This depends. If the murderer was known to be a troublemaker, in that he had previously killed someone in a fight or injured so many in a fight, and I know that this would not deter him and he would keep on killing people and harming people, no, you do not pardon. Here you demand a life for a life, because by doing so you are protecting the whole community from it. But if this person is or fell in this sin by mistake, due to rage, and usually he is a normally a good person, then this is up to you whether to pardon or to demand blood money, because forgiveness here is better than execution. I remember Sheikh Muhammad Salih al-Munajjid, may Allah preserve him, about maybe 8 years ago or 10 years ago, his eldest son Anas was with his friend, and all of a sudden one of his friends killed him. We don't know the circumstances, but probably it was a fight, and the killer was his own friend, and you can imagine how bad he felt afterwards. When the sheikh was asked to come to court, it wasn't night, and he pardoned him in court. So he didn't wait for the following day. He immediately went and forgave the killer for the sake of Allah, and did not even take blood money. And this shows you that the act of forgiveness is highly regarded by Allah Azza wa Jal, and when it's put in its place, it also brings a lot of goodness to an individual, and it shows you the caliber of people. And then we have the semi-deliberate killing, or what they call in legal terms manslaughter. So what is the difference between deliberate killing and the semi-deliberate killing? The biggest difference is the tool, the crime weapon. So the intention to harm is there. It's a fight, and there is an intention to harm someone. But the tool itself is not considered to be a murder weapon. So in a murder, you stab someone and he dies. In a semi-murder or semi-killing, you pinch someone with a needle. And we all know needles don't kill unless you use it in some place that kills. But if you just simply put it in somebody's hands and he dies, this is considered to be simi killing, but intentional, but not murder. Secondly, in deliberate killing, you have qisas, an eye for an eye. They have the right to demand the execution of the murderer. In simi killing, this is not applicable. Semi-deliberate killing is not applicable because the heirs of the deceased cannot demand this. They have one of two: either take blood money or to pardon. Thirdly, when it comes to blood money, it is 100 camels with specifications. But when the killing is deliberate, it has to be taken from the murderer's wealth. While in the semi-deliberate killing and the accidental killing, the 100 camels are taken from his kinship. So his relations, his cousins and uncles and brothers and nephews, they are the one who contribute for that blood money because it was not deliberate. And fourthly, deliberate killing has no expiation, while semi-deliberate killing as well as the accidental killing has expiation, which is once a person kills someone by mistake or semi-deliberately, he must expiate this by, other than the blood money, other than everything else, he has to give one free slave. He has to free a slave. Nowadays we don't have slaves. He has to fast 2 consecutive months. And this is expiation for what he had done. So the semi-deliberate killing, as we said, that the offender attacks his victim with something which does not normally cause death. Though there is an assault. He was trying to assault him. So it is similar to accidental killing because of using something that does not normally cause death. So what's the ruling on it? Again, we've stated that you either, or the heirs of the deceased, of the victim, either demand blood money, the diya, or they can pardon. There's nothing else they can do. What about the accidental killing? Accidental killing has no intention to kill, none whatsoever. Such as a person who drives a car and gets into an accident and someone dies in the accident. He had no intention of assault. He had no intention to harm anyone, and it happened accidentally. Well, this requires the same as the semi-deliberate killing. It requires the blood money and it requires the expiation as well. So what are the differences between the accidental killing and the other two? So accidental and semi-deliberate both have no qasas. There is no a life for a life. Both have blood money or indemnity, and both the blood money is paid by the next of kin. They differ in that semi-deliberate is intentional, accidental is not. That the diya or the blood money is maximized in the semi-deliberate, but it is not in the accidental. And finally, that the semi-deliberate, the person is sinful at the sight of Allah, while the accidental, he is not sinful for that. And also the difference between accidental and deliberate killing is the deliberate killing has qisas, while accidental doesn't. The deliberate killing's indemnity or blood money is maximized, while the accidental is not. The one who pays for the indemnity or the blood money is the murderer. The accidental killing, the person who was involved is not the one who pays it, rather his aqilah or the kinship. Fourthly, that in accidental killing you have to give expiation, which is freeing a slave, if not fasting 2 consecutive months. In intentional deliberate killing, there's no expiation. So even if I kill someone deliberately and the heirs pardon me, I feel bad about it, I would like to give expiation, free a slave, maybe fast 2 consecutive months. Islam says, no, you're not required to do this. Why not? Because your crime is far greater than to be expiated by this. You had this premeditated intention to kill someone, and you used the weapon to do so. So no, expiation is made to comfort a person and to make him express his remorse through fasting 2 consecutive months. That's a lot of time. For you as a murderer, you don't get it so easy or as easy. And definitely, fifthly, deliberate killing has a great sin behind it, while the accidental one is sinless because it was done as a mistake. Now, there are conditions, and this is not mentioned in your books, but it is taken from the Hanbali fiqh. They say for qasas there has to be 4 conditions. Condition number 1, we cannot ask for qisas unless the one who was killed is protected by Islam, and they call this ma'soom. So no one is allowed to attack him. So if someone kills him, then yes, this is one of the conditions fulfilled, because you killed someone who's protected by Islam. And who are those protected by Islam? We mentioned this before. They are a Muslim individual, any Muslim, he's protected by Islam. Dhimmi is protected by Islam. Al-Mu'ahad is protected by Islam. And Al-Musta'man. So what are these? Number 1 is a Muslim. Any Muslim is protected in Islam. You cannot simply just go and kill him. And if you do, you're a murderer. End of story. Number 2, Al-Dhimmi, the Jews and the Christians who live in Muslim territory and they pay the taxation known as jizya. So they must be respected and their safety is honored and they cannot be attacked. Thirdly, Al-Mu'ahad, someone who comes in with a treaty. So there is a treaty between Muslim countries and all other Muslims. Whenever they get a visa and come in, they have Al-Ahd. While Al-Musta'man is a person that we have war with his country, with his government, but he comes for a particular period of time, for a particular reason, such as ambassadors who come, or messengers to deliver a message, or we need their expertise for a very short period of time and limited, and that is it. So this is condition number one. Condition number two is that the killer, the murderer, has to be someone who can be held accountable. So if an insane person kills someone, the victim's heirs cannot demand execution. The guy is insane. If a child below the age of puberty kills someone, they cannot demand execution, and so on. Thirdly, there has to be compatibility between the murderer and the victim. So the murderer must be equal to the victim in religion, in freedom and slavery. What does that mean? If a Muslim kills a non-Muslim, this is a heinous crime, but he is not executed in exchange for his crime. The Muslim judge may punish him by throwing him like 20 years, 30 years in prison. This is up to the judge, but not execution. Execution has to be compatibility between the victim and the murderer. If a free man kills a slave, he's not killed for him. Though it's a heinous crime, again, the judge may do whatever he wants with this murderer, but not to take his life, because they are not compatible. Of course, this is in dunya, in this life. In the hereafter, he would definitely be punished like any other murderer, and so on. And fourthly, among the conditions for qisas is that the killer, the murderer, must not be the cause of the victim's existence. So if the murderer is the father of the victim, if the murderer is the mother of the victim, they are not killed because they are the cause of his existence in this world. They're punished through different means of punishment, and this again is an issue of dispute among scholars. Some scholars said no, the execution has to take place even if a father kills his son, and others said no, and it's an issue depending on the school of thought, on the opinion of the judge who is looking into this. A fifth condition is that in order for it to be qisas, you have to have the intention of assault and to harm and attack. If it happened by accident or by mistake, then this does not apply. And lastly, some schools of thought said that the killer has to be someone other than the Muslim ruler, and this definitely fits the Muslim rulers well. They say because a Muslim ruler, he is in charge of ruling the whole country, and if he were to be executed, that would cause a lot of chaos and problems. And this is why we address such a Muslim ruler by telling him, for your heinous crime, Allah Azza wa Jal is preparing for you torment in hellfire for eternity, and Allah's wrath will fall upon you, and Allah's curse awaits for you, and Allah has prepared a very bad place for you on the hereafter. As for this dunya, as for this life, it is not logical to spoil our world for one individual who was killed unjustly by this tyrant. So may Allah have mercy on him. He will be given paradise for his plight, but we cannot execute this tyrant Muslim ruler for what he had done, because the cons far outweigh the pros. Yes, we can make justice prevail, but justice has a very, very expensive price, and Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. I think we will stop here and we will take our questions in the remaining time. So Abdul Rahman says, can you list out in order all the walis for a woman, and what? I think we've answered this last time. I forgot to cross it out. So Abdul Rahim says, Assalamu alaikum, alaikum salam. About what to recite after Surah Al-Fatiha in Salah. Can someone have it in mind that I'm going to read this surah, or what just come to mind at that time? Yes. If I pray, let's assume Fajr prayer, and before starting Fajr, I intended to recite Surah Al-Fajr in the first rak'ah and Surah Al-Balad in the second rak'ah. After I did my takbir, recited the Fatiha, I thought, why not recite the last 3 ayahs of Surah Al-Baqarah? No problem. You are your own master. You can change whatever you want, whenever you want to do that without a problem, inshaAllah. Karima says, is it halal that a man puts a condition to a lady he proposed to get married, a condition like having villa or job, or living in a certain country, or making certain amount of money, or else no marriage? No, of course, this is not permissible nor logical. The conditions are usually set by the woman, and as a consequence, if the conditions were not fulfilled, this gives her the right for divorce. So now my wife doesn't like me. She goes to the judge and she says, I don't like him. The judge says, tough bananas, what do you want me to do for you? She says, give me a divorce. He says, no, he's the only one who can divorce. You want to bail out? Give him back his dowry. She gives me my dowry, she gets a divorce. If a woman made a condition, so she made a condition in the marriage contract, and it's written down that her husband has no right to take her out of her city. They got married in Mecca. 5 years later, the man said, listen, I would like to relocate and live in Medina. She said, sorry, I told you in the contract that you have no right in relocating me, and you agreed. He said, well, I'm going either way. In this case, she has a full right to go to the judge, show him the contract, and then the judge gives her divorce because the man did not fulfill his condition. A man does not have the right to put conditions simply because he has the right to divorce. So to assume that a man comes and puts a condition that his wife gives him a villa, or provides him with a job, or to live in a certain country, or to make a certain amount of money, a man doesn't have the right to put such conditions, because this is like demanding dowry. And this is unfortunately found in some areas and parts of India, Pakistan and Bangladesh, where the men who propose to a family demand, alongside with their own family, that the girl's family provide gifts to the groom. And such a person can't be a groom. He's a broom with a B, because he wipes the floors and cleans the wallet of the girl's father from money. I've seen people having the audacity to come and say to the girl's family, yeah, we want a Corolla, Toyota Corolla 2020, the color red, for our son, and you have to furnish the house and bring the appliances, the refrigerators, the air conditioning, the bedrooms, the furniture, the whole 9 yards. You do all of this. And the man pays the dowry of maybe like 100 rupees or 1,000 rupees. What is this? And people come and complain to me and say that this is unfortunately prevailing in some areas of the subcontinent. And I tell you that this is shocking. This is a Hindu practice, and any Muslim accepting this has characteristics of Hindus. No man would allow his wife to put a penny in the house, or to give him a car, or to demand from her father to find him a job. He's not a man, he is a male, like any other animal, to segregate genders from one another. But he's not a man. A man is taking responsibility and being a real man, providing for your wife, as Allah Azza wa Jal mentions in the Qur'an, الرجال قوامون على النساء بما فضل الله بعضهم على بعض وبما أنفقوا من أموالهم. Men are protectors and guardians over women because of what Allah has favored them over women, and because of what they had spent from their own money, from their own wealth. So to defy this and to demand the women to pay for you, shame on you. Karima says, what Sharia says about a man who sells all his property to his daughters before his death and keeps only the house to live in and leaving it to Islamic inheritance rules. No problem. A person having 4 daughters, no sons, and he has siblings and he has other relatives, we know that the daughters will automatically get 2/3 of the inheritance. What about the third? It will go to his siblings if he doesn't have a father and a mother. So the man, while he's alive, decides not to sell, decides to give his 4 daughters all of his properties, and he changes the deeds into their names equally, and he goes to his bank account and he divides it into 4 shares equally. His brothers complain, why are you doing this? This is not permissible. Who said it's not permissible? It's my money. He said, yes, but you want to deprive us from it. Excuse me? I'm not dead. I didn't deprive you of anything. If I wrote a will, that would have been depriving you, because I cannot write a will to my own daughters. So I am giving it to them as a gift, or I'm selling it to them as normal selling and buying. This is my hard-earned money, and you guys don't have a right to complain, none whatsoever. Therefore, there's nothing wrong in that, inshallah, and Allah knows best. Ahmed says, can I ask how to perform ruqya with Surah Al-Fatiha? Yes, of course you can ask. Ruqya is usually a recitation, something you read. Allahumma rabban nas adhhib al-bas washfi anta ash-shafi la shifaa illa shifaa'uk shifaa'an la yughadiru saqama. This is a hadith. I say it as a ruqya when I visit someone who's ill. If I dry spit, that would be good. Do I have to put my hand on his head? No. Do I have to touch him? No. Just reciting it and blowing at him would do. If I recite the Fatiha and blow, that's even better. If I want to recite the Fatiha on a bottle of water or a gallon of water, and I recite it once and blow, recite it twice, 3 times, 5 times, 7 times, as many as you wish, in odd numbers preferably, and you blow, and you drink from that water, and you wash yourself or the affected area with that water, that would be great. There's nothing wrong in that, inshallah. If you add to it Ayat al-Kursi, if you add to it the last 2 ayahs of Surah Al-Baqarah, if you add to it the last 3 quls, that would be also great. Hussein Al-Amin says, my mother passed away 3 months ago. May Allah have mercy on her. Is it permissible for my younger sister to get married now? It is said in our society that if someone's parent passes away, he or she has to wait for 1.5 years long. After this certain period, he or she can get married. It would be convenient to understand for me if you provide me references from the Qur'an and the Hadith regarding this. First of all, may Allah have mercy on your mom's soul. Second of all, whoever claims something in Islam is the one who is responsible for providing the evidence. So if I come and say you can't get married except after 1.5 years, I said, says who? You say Islam. I say, show me. Allah says, قُلْ هَاتُوا بُرْهَانَكُمْ إِن كُنْتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. Bring forward your evidence if you're telling the truth. Because I can come and say, Fajr prayer is 2 rak'ahs. Now we have to pray it 4 rak'ahs. Someone says who? I say Islam. Will you believe me? No, you have to bring evidence from Qur'an or the Sunnah. This is the same situation. Anyone claiming something in Islam must bring evidence to back it up. And the evidence to back my claim up is that Habiba, may Allah be pleased with her, narrated that the Prophet ﷺ prohibited for any person to mourn a deceased for more than 3 days, except a wife who has been widowed. So for a woman to mourn her deceased husband, she has to wait for 4 months and 10 days. So your sister mourning for 1.5 years is definitely way away from Islam. Yes, maybe some people would, out of respect, wait for a couple of weeks, a month. What you've done is 3 months. Whoa, that's a lot. So definitely what the culture is saying is totally bogus. Get your sister married as soon as possible. This is from Zahra. My friend wants to ask if it is allowed to get married through video call, then the parents of the woman know about it. Can you give details? First of all, it's a contemporary issue. It's a new issue that has risen recently, because up till maybe 30, 40 years ago, we did not have video calls. So this is something new. And it is also something dangerous. Imagine I go on Facebook, or someone sends me a message, and I open the message and I find that it is one of the girls interested in me. We chit chat, shaitan comes to me, shaitan comes to her, and we chit chat for a few weeks, and then we fall in love. So we decide to get married. So I can't go to her country, she cannot come to mine. So we make a video call. and her father is present, two of her brothers as witnesses, I on the other end with my two friends, maybe my father, and we make a marriage contract. Her father says, زوجتك ابنتي, I give you my daughter so and so in marriage. And I say, I accept her marriage to myself. The witnesses are there. Boom, we're married. Now the girl is married. All of a sudden, I change my Skype ID. I change my mobile number. She has no traces of me or my whereabouts. She says, wow, that was a scam. This sheikh was fraud. I want out of this marriage. You can't. What do you mean I can't? You can't get out of this marriage. Who will accept to give you divorce or to nullify the marriage? No judge would do that. The moment you go to a Muslim judge or a court, and complain, they say, okay, show us the marriage contract. Oh, I'm sorry, we don't have any. Give me the ID of the husband. I don't have any. Passport? Whereabout? Contact number? I don't have any. Witnesses? I have two of my brothers. And sometimes she doesn't have a brother. She only has a father. The witnesses are my friends, my relatives. So now she cannot prove anything. And she spends ages and years going from one court to the other, from one mufti to the other, to find her a way out. It's your mistake. So what to do, Sheikh? If all the parties are known to one another and there is no possibility of identity theft. So I find a woman and she is from Southeast Asia, from Indonesia, for example. We like each other. I said, I want to get married to you. She said, okay, let me get on a conference call with my father. And someone appears to me like an elderly person. He says, yes, yes, okay, I give you my daughter in marriage. I accept her marriage. Boom, done. After 5-6 months, I discovered that this man is not her father. She hired him to pretend that he's her father so that we can get married. The marriage is void. So a lot of similar cases take place. If a person is studying in the UK and he's from Bangladesh and his father and mother saw this girl for him in their village and he knows her because she's from the same village, her father knows him because he was born and raised there. So when they have a conference call, everybody knows everybody. Nobody would doubt that, oh, this is Sheikh Asim, because they know him. And nobody doubts that Uncle so-and-so is the father of the girl, because I know him so many times. I've seen him, I've been invited to his house. He hit me so many times for eating from his fruit trees without his permission. In this case, such conference marriage or video marriage are legitimate, and Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. So this is all the time we have until we meet next Thursday, which would be Arafah. So most likely I will not attend next Thursday due to Arafah, but I will inshallah meet on Monday. Yet Thursday is shaky grounds. If I don't have anything to do, no engagement, no family commitment, I will post on my Twitter and Facebook that we will have a class on Thursday. But most likely we will not have a class. So until we meet next Monday, I pray to Allah Azza wa Jal that your Eid is a blessed Eid and that Allah accepts all your deeds in these beautiful 10 days where the good deeds are the most beloved to Allah Azza wa Jal. Wallahu a'lam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.